Hello, our friends. Evolutionary Energy Arts family, it's working.
It's working. We've been trying like 4 times to get this up and it's been interrupted.
So we were back out on the road yesterday, and we stopped at a nice little park and we made a video, and we're about 15 minutes into the video and we're starting to kind of wrap it up, and I see kind of out of my third eye a large dark shadow working its way towards us. I turned to look at it, and then all of a sudden the phone died. The video, once we got the phone charged again, see that the entity basically sucked the juice from the phone, and then the video was not able to play. So, and then this morning we got the message that this was sent by the ROTHS childs.
Yeah.
It was a thought form that was sent to basically just, stop the message. As, really, truly, this is a world in which there's good and bad magic, so to speak. Really everything is a million shades of gray when you get down to it. But without a doubt, we are in spiritual warfare.
Right. And there's some belief systems in place that benefit them. And it seems like every time we go near one of their sacred cows, something really weird happens to try to prevent us or discourage us from putting up these videos. And it happens every single time. And it's just inevitable. But here we are. We're going to make sure it gets up there because I think it's very important. We think it's very important.
And this is a topic that we've touched on before and we've done some videos on. But we want to revisit it because it's so important in these times to have some sort of understanding as to the bigger picture. Many people view it like the end of the world happens when we die. But that's not the case. We've died. Most of us have died many, many times, and now I've been able to recollect sometimes, and there's flashes. With me, I get flashes, and thankfully I have Cindy and the guides that help to clarify things. Now, a lot of things are not supposed to be known per se because it can interfere with our journey in this particular lifetime. But again, we are behind enemy lines, and we don't. Unfortunately, the masses are just starting to wake up to the fact that they are behind enemy lines, meaning that our reality has been hijacked. So it makes it a little bit more fair game in a sense to throw a little cold water on the situation and wake people up to what's supposed to happen as opposed to what does happen or what people's expectations are. What happens when we die?
Yeah. I mean, everybody asks themselves that a few times in their life, I'm sure. Some people face it and they have this understanding of what a certain book has given us, and that we go to a really good place or we go to a really bad place, and that's it. Then it's done.
Yeah, or we simply aren't. We're sleeping until the last trumpet and Judgment Day, and then we're resurrected and going to be judged and either thrown into a lake of fire or have eternal bliss. That's basically what we get from the belief systems that are in this world right now. The majority belief systems. Of course, people have their own belief systems. My mom grew up Catholic, went to Catholic church up until the end. 90 years of being Catholic. Yet when we would talk about things, and I would tell her, "Don't worry, you're going to be okay." As she knew she was dying for a while. And I said, "Don't worry, you're going to be okay." And she'd be like, "No, I don't know. I really don't know." Even though she was Catholic all those years, and I would tell her, "I do know. You're going to be okay." And before she was actually dead, she came and visited me, and I was in Nevada, and she was on the East Coast. And she was out of her body because she was already starting to transition. And I felt her grab my beard and tug on it. And she hated any facial hair. She always wanted me clean shaven, and I was hardly ever clean shaven in my life. And so I knew it was her, and I knew she was close to transitioning. And then when she did transition, she was thrilled to be out of the body because she was able to move, to dance, to fly around. I mean, it was just wonderful because she was used to having so much energy. And her last 10 years, she couldn't get around like she wanted to. You know, this was a woman that was in her 80s and still would go walk miles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it really was a case of, you know, the body started to weigh her spirit down, and then she just decided, you know, because she saw the way the times were heading, that she wanted out.
Mm-hmm.
But it was interesting too, because my dad, when he died, because he died 20 years before her, 23 years before her, he came to her when he had passed on and scared the crap out of her.
Mm-hmm.
She was scared to see him, even though, I mean, that was her only love of her life. And they were together like 50 years, but it did scare her. So even though she was in the Catholic system all her life, she really didn't have that belief.
Right. And I unfortunately I didn't get the pleasure of meeting Mike's mom, but we did talk a few times on the phone, so I didn't know her very well. However, when she did cross over, I saw her walking into the bedroom, like walking super, super fast. And I didn't know that that was like her thing, was to be so active. And she was so excited to be able to move her body and get around. I mean, she hadn't even taken the time to dress out of her gown yet. She was just out of body and she was excited. So, um, and when it comes to what happens when we die, sometimes I see people, they go to what I call the resting place. And that's a place that they get to make up whatever they want. And a lot of people will go to a beach. They'll show me a beach and they'll show me the blue skies and the sand. And a lot of people just love to be there and have the waves wash up and just simply rest and be. Now, when we do a life review, that's something where the energy body stays with us. The physical 3D body is returned to the earth and the energy body is going with us. Now, that's something that we take a very long time to unpack and understand, because there can even be energies from other lifetimes that didn't quite get processed. So we take all of this information into the realm of the energy worlds and we try to understand it. We try to make sense of it. Everything that we have done, everything that we have seen, everything that we have said, all of our experiences, good and bad, is not judged. It is just something that we process. Now, we have an opportunity to process things down here in the 3D realm, which can be pretty heavy and intense. And sometimes during life, things are just too complicated and we don't get a chance to process our emotions properly. But that's something very, very important that we need to learn to do in the living time, because this is where you can process it fully and understand it fully. After we pass, then it's about unpacking more things and finding more revolutions. Like, oh, okay, well, that's why that happened, so that this could be done. So it's very interesting, what they were telling me and explaining to me what happens after we die. I enjoyed understanding it finally, just really understanding it. You unpack everything, and that just really helped me, actually.
Absolutely. You know, again, we have belief systems that are imposed upon us in order to control our consciousness and to keep us in a frequency band that the controllers can still control. Because the ultimate controllers, they reside on 4D. And again, you know, we've been living in a conscious awake state on 3D, and when we sleep, we're in 4D. Now, depending on your vibrations, you might find yourself towards the lower end of 4D, the middle, or the upper. Again, it's a very, very expansive place. There's so many different nooks and crannies to explore. And I've touched on it before. In fact, the Buddhist monks have mapped the astral realms, and they are massive. There's numerous heavens. So anything that can be conceived of exists. If mankind has thought of something, it exists. If we've thought of a being, we could all agree that we're going to create this magnificent being, and we're going to name it whatever. And if we all send our intentions to it, it would exist. Again, the universe is mind stuff, ultimately. Quantum physics shows us that everything out there is just kind of waiting to be shaped by our consciousness. Now, the controllers understand this, so they're always trying to keep us in a lower frequency. And when we have things like all the traumatic events that we constantly see upon the earth, it keeps you in a lower frequency. What's one of the best ways to ensure that when people are going to reincarnate, they're going to reincarnate into the same sort of frequency that they came out of is through warfare. And when we see nonstop war, nonstop battles, again, this scars the soul. It scars the soul. Yet we are taught to think you're doing a great service to humanity, to mankind, to the world. You're serving your country when we really need to serve source, serve our higher selves, serve the common good by lifting each other up, not by shooting each other. What we're doing when we are following the pattern of this world is we're lowering our frequency. We're increasing the likelihood that we're going to reincarnate again in the same place or a very similar place in similar circumstances. One of our family members, and gosh, I'm trying to remember who it was now, they had asked about this. How about the law of karma, cause and effect? Yeah, that does go into account. We do also plan things as well. And sometimes, we'll take on personas that are not typical to us in order to learn a new perspective. Ultimately, we are consciousness. We're not the physical body. And I've shared with you guys when my brother died when I was 5, I remember coming back, walking into the kitchen, and everybody was putting their coats down and stuff. It was extremely somber. And then I found myself alone, and I was staring at the kitchen wall, and I was just wondering where he was. And the next thing I know, I'm out behind my body and a little bit above my body, looking down at my body, saying, "Whoa, I'm not the body." And it was my moment of self-realization in this life. And the reason why I had that was because I've had numerous lives, basically as a Buddhist monk, as I keep going back to do the monk thing in between lives like this one, just to ground myself, and I find it very comforting and peaceful, to basically spend tons of time in meditation. That's always felt so good to me. I was a strange little kid that used to go into his closet to meditate at like 5 and 6 and 7 years old, to get away from the world and to induce that feeling of oneness, which is so comforting. That expansive feeling you get when you are able to recognize that the body is just your vehicle and you are much more than the body. And when Cindy and I are speaking about this, we're not really speaking left-brained. Again, many people will say, well, you got to check out this person's work or that person's work. I think, we're at that place where we don't want to check out anybody else's work, period, because we're just busy having our own experiences.
Right.
And so when we want to learn something, we just basically go within, we contact the guides. And since the guides are looking at everything from a higher perspective, they can give us realizations or help us to realize things that we wouldn't necessarily realize because we're so in the middle of the muck and the mire, so to speak. So with us, we don't like to look at anybody else's work at this point in time. And I remember having a conversation with a friend that was very much like that years ago. And they did some channeling and they didn't want to know anything. And I would be like, well, you really should read this. Look at the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Tell me what you think. Read the Egyptian Book of the Dead. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And they didn't want anything to influence their opinion. They wanted to just basically get their own message directly. And at that point in my life, I was all about gobbling up everything I could as far as information. And now I understand where they were coming from, because now it's like, yeah, I don't want to taint myself with what somebody else thinks. I want to just, go directly to my own personal guides. Cindy and I, we share our guides because we've been together multiple lives. And we realized this, and that's why it felt so comfortable when we got back together. It was like, ah, gosh, we've been apart for a long time, but we've done this so many times in the past, and now, since we have been able to focus on it, we can see, our past lives, at least some of them, and understand, what we've been through to get to this point in time and what our purpose is.
Absolutely. And we had the most lovely family member this morning to work on her. And one of the things that I was honored to do was to really listen for her guides, because she wasn't quite sure. She's like, am I hearing from them? Because, how do I know I'm hearing from the guides? Well, sometimes it comes from behind me. Sometimes it comes from the right, the left, or straight above me. So these are things that I've learned to pay attention to. So when her guides are talking to me, it's the same as my guides. They're talking from behind me. And I just couldn't reassure her enough that her simply following her instincts is the same as her hearing from her guides. But we're all different, and we all have to learn that in some way, shape, or form. Like, how do you distinguish? And it's definitely a journey. So for me, a lot of my problem is I couldn't do all the book reading because I'm dyslexic. I can go into a book and maybe absorb a sentence, maybe two, but that takes a really long time for me. And these are all things that have just come to me. So it's just this kind of ongoing dialogue. And then I got to pay attention to where is this information coming from? And that really helps me understand, okay, that's from this guide. Or, sometimes, like, if it's a really big guide, say like a archangel, it comes from directly above me. If I'm talking with someone's family member, it comes from in front of me to the right. And I almost wanted to say left because I'm all backwards. I'm dyslexic. I'm like pointing right. Yeah. But anyway, I'm all backwards. But definitely learning these things is really, really helpful for you and your journey.
So what typically happens is we are usually greeted by our guides, our loved ones, those that have gone before us that still haven't fully reincarnated. And then there's a period of just basically review. So, we look at what we learned, because this is all about learning. It's all about growing. So the soul grows through these experiences. And when you're in a place like we all find ourselves right now, at the end of a Kali Yuga, the end of a dark age, you couldn't pick something that has more potential for growth than this. The potential for growth here is enormous. It's up to each one of us. Again, in so many ways, life mimics a game. It really does mimic a virtual reality game. And you're in a game that has the ability to give you a ton of experience points. Let's just say experience points. Like, you could go into a different time period, maybe a golden age, a silver age, and have the potential to get so many experience points. But when you're going into this age, the experience points might be 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. So it can lead to more soul growth, especially when you see these acts of love and acts of compassion. This is where bodhisattvas can be born. And what's a bodhisattva? A bodhisattva is somebody that can merge all the way up into source, can go all the way back to becoming, again, part of source, so that we don't necessarily lose our own sense of separate self, yet we are merged back in with source, but decides to stay one notch below that so it could help every other being rise on up in frequency and vibration as well. These are beings that we can think of in terms of ascended masters, which are very real, and they come from all different traditions.
Right. And then, you got to talk about the whole um, issue about descension. People who come down here again, and many times they've done this on purpose, and a lot of people might call them fallen angels, but they're not really fallen. They've chosen to come down here and help to make the earth a better place with their energy, and their energy that's so far reaching. Some people just have a much um, more stronger light that's more penetrable than others, and they're here for a certain purpose. We all have very, very important divine purposes. And it's really interesting to watch some people. Like when I do a chart, for example, I can get a feel for somebody and their soul and their whole life's purpose. It's like, what did they come here to work on? What did they come here to process? What are their strengths and weaknesses? And we've definitely had a couple of family members that have this chart with a certain position on their chart that shows, yes, they are absolutely ascended masters. And to be able to put those two together is just incredibly awesome. I feel that we can tie that into astrology.
Absolutely. And the astrology part of it, we jump through when the conditions are optimal for our next life. So like my mother, for instance, she's already planning a comeback. And, my mother was somebody that was, oh gosh, the ultimate patriot. I mean, she was so, the USA is beautiful. It's the best thing in the world. This is the era that she was brought up in. She grew up as a teenager going through World War II. And now she's looking to incarnate somewhere over in Southeast Asia, perhaps China.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's to look at something from a totally different perspective. And she's looking to come back right away. And so that's really fascinating because my two grandfathers, they're still on the other side. They've been there since 1959. I actually never met them in person in this life. And not everybody goes at the same pace. So I took about 57 years off between the last incarnation and this one to reflect and get ready for this. With each person it's unique, with each life it's unique. Sometimes we need more time to process. And again, when it's traumatic, like I've been on some of the battlefields of the Civil War, and I could feel them, still there, still trapped. Sometimes souls can get trapped for hundreds of years. And it's interesting when you look into the mythology of, what really did say, what's some of the oldest beliefs about the other side is, they did understand there was this like shadow zone, we could kind of say. A shadow zone, we could look at it as, Catholics would talk about purgatory. It's not really a purgatory. There is kind of like a being lost because of trauma. And this is what the controllers do. Again, there are soldiers that have been wandering Gettysburg all the way back since, 1865. It's insane, but it's real. And we still meet ghosts on a regular basis that haven't processed. But one of the things that was a tradition in some parts of the world, like I think about the Shinto religion, which is the biggest religion in Japan. It's all about connecting to your ancestors. By healing our ancestors, we could heal the future as well. We're all so interconnected. So yeah, sending prayers. There's no reason to stop praying for mom, dad, grandma, and grandpa because they passed on. You're still helping them when you reach out and you send love to them. You send, blessings and good tidings. There are many pagan traditions that will, at certain times, like the anniversary of the death of a loved one, they'll set a full plate. They'll have a big, big meal and set a full plate for that loved one. And they could still utilize the life force from the food, and it can benefit them. You could send them your prayers and your love, and it will benefit them. We've helped many spirits that have been trapped. There's several spirits of little girls. One that we met in Nevada that looked more,
Creepy?
kind of creepy, just to
Say
put it plain
it.
and simple. When we first met her, and then she got to be vibrant and joyous, and she ended up coming visiting us in New Mexico, where she met the ghost of a native girl, and they hit it off, and they're having a blast now. And it went from being basically trapped in the in between to now they're vibrant and enjoy themselves, and they're everywhere playing.
Yes, speaking of different beings, I also wanted to touch on pets. Now we've had some people come to us and they had lost their pet and they have a very, very heavy heart. Say it's been 7 years since this pet has been deceased. Well, the good news is that when you have a connection like that to your pets, they stay with you. And it's very probable that you've been together in more than one lifetime. So this was really interesting for me to experience a couple of times, having been able to channel the information that somebody's pet, like they're rolled up down by your feet. They're still doing what they did before. They're a little bit confused about why you are not able to pet them, but they're still close to you. So these are things that, it's not readily available. It's not known in books, but these are all things that happen in the energy world that we don't see.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of other things that are kind of mind blowing that we could go into, and we'll have to delve into a greater depth in other videos, because even the fact that you can have a part of a person's soul incarnate as a pet to help somebody. A part of a person's soul can incarnate as a pet in order to be a right there guide, a right there presence in your life. And it literally could be a part of a great grandfather or something along those lines. And that was mind blowing. And I had no clue about that until recently, with info that we got from the guides. Now, there will be some people that say, well, the Bible says you can't talk to the dead. Well, I'll come straight out and tell you that's because that is the Illuminati, Draco, Anunnaki, EGG control manual. They don't want you to. Who's telling you? It's not the creator of this universe. No, it's them. They're telling you that. That's part of their hijacking of belief systems. That's part of them keeping you separate and only under their control. And again, there are some truths that you could find in the Bible. There are always things that are hidden, hidden nuggets and hidden gems. And yes, the love of the Creator is amazing to behold. And we have channeled the creator of this universe. And how would you describe that energy?
Oh my gosh, I had a very hard time holding it together, much like when I channel Yeshua's energy. I can feel it coming in now. It's just like this force that starts to fill up your body. And somehow these energies are so potent and powerful. It's like you don't even realize you're processing emotions. They just do. It's like an energy coming through you, and you're like being cleaned and you're being cleansed. And at the same time, you're able to express those things that they want expressed. So these are very, very beautiful entities that, to hold their energy just for a moment is, I don't know, it's, I don't really have words for it. When I am channeling them, their energy comes through me and then I speak it to Mike. And it's just so, you're able to process so much information when you are channeling these entities. And I just can't say enough that, between Yeshua and Vishnu, what a blessing that was to just hold their energy just for a little while. And it really helped me. I kind of turned a corner, energetically and physically. I turned a corner and I started getting even more better, because there's a lot of things inside of me that are complicated and kind of, not right. And they really helped me find a path to freedom. And That's what I want everyone to have. I want everyone to have the freedom of their own understanding, not an understanding that has been brought to you.
Absolutely. So again, there are some truths in things that are right there, and in all traditions that we could find universal truths. And yes, the ultimate creator is an amazingly benevolent, beautiful being that is so full of love. And then yet the creator of this universe is not source itself, because there are many creators of many different universes out there, and there is one source of which we are all a part. And yet every being that is incarnating here in this universe does have the creator of this universe imprinted on them, because being in here, we come through that lens. Think of it as the light of source coming into this universe has to come in through the creator of this universe's prism, so to speak. Again, think about it as light reflecting through glass and taking on a certain pattern. And so, yes, the creator of this universe is imprinted on every single one of them. And, there's magnificent love there and compassion. And, that being doesn't want anything but the best for all of its children. And then, we could view that being as the father aspect, and then there's the mother aspect as well. Again, there should be always this balance. And the balance has been just completely distorted because the system is one about keeping things out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all part of these controllers. And again, they hijack things because, yeah, when you feel the love of the creator, it does make it so that all you want to do is just bathe in it. It's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, beyond comprehension, just like the love of the mother and the mother energy that's all around us, and all these divine, goddess energies that are out there. It's really just the controllers that have distorted everything and distorted that whole sense of things. So a lot of times, people will use the term new age. Really, you should think of it in terms of, well, this is the philosophy of the golden and silver ages, not the dark age. The dark age philosophy is the backwards philosophy. The dark age philosophy is viewing the soul, every incarnation it takes, as being flawed. That whole concept of original sin, it just creates a negative vibe right from the get-go, and that we need a savior. We don't need a savior. We just simply need to cultivate the best within us. Now Yeshua is a template to be followed. He's like the pattern of um, that anointed state. And again, the anointing, the christened the christened ones, because we all need to become christened, so to speak, anointed. Again, it's a consciousness thing. It's operating through the heart center. It's operating through that fourth chakra, which connects the upper three with the lower three. And again, there's that harmony and that balance.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, I wanted to speak to original sin just a little bit. And, if you go back to the meaning of the word sin, it's like miss the mark. And like Mike said, it sets a tone for a negative energy to come in. But really, when we look at source is perfection. And we're a piece off of source. So we cannot be source itself, but we can be just an offshoot of source. That's how I see original sin. It's like we're not supposed to be perfect, but in alignment.
Right. So when you see people saying repent, repent, even the original definition of repent has been changed and twisted. There's that immediate feeling of you need to repent, otherwise there's pain and suffering and there's consequences. You're going to burn in hell and all that, and that's not the case at all. That is the Illuminati, Draco, Anunnaki, Ijiji belief system they've placed upon us. It's not the real reality of things. Again, as is said in the Bhagavad Gita, worn out bodies are discarded by the user just as worn out garments are. The user goes on, learns new lessons. Now, if the user is so convinced that, they're going to suffer eternal torment, then they might find themselves, as Buddha said, they might find themselves in that situation. Buddha said the only hells exist in the minds of those that believe in them.
Mm-hmm.
It's your belief structure. If you believe that you deserve to be burnt forever, then you might find yourself in not a great place.
Mm-hmm.
But that's of your own creation.
Well, that's someone giving you your belief system that contains your soul. It keeps it where they want it.
Exactly. So, this is stuff that they don't want getting out there. Again, they don't want this getting out there because this takes their power away. If you focus on the love, and if you could tap into that, honestly, the reason why I'm so high on the mantras is because of what they've done for me. They've brought me peace beyond comprehension, and they've worked to draw in the guides, these beautiful benevolent beings, and I could see when they come, because I've been able to see energy since I was in my like 21, 22. I started to actually see the life force and see the energy patterns. So I see when they come, and I see their frequency as a color. And then there's just this love that's beyond comprehension. It's incredible and touching that here while I'm still in the flesh is so intoxicating and blissful, that it's going to be incredible when you're up in the higher dimensions, like 5D, 6D, 7D. It's just going to be wonderful. And again, most of what people talk about is in the astral, because the astral is that which we are already having access to. And 5D is far better again than the astral, as far as the fact that, in the lower astral, this is where these beings reside. This is their home territory, and this is the territory of the hellish realms, so to speak, the demonic realms. So again, this our vibratory frequency is changing such that, as the Aborigines say, we're returning to dream time. So it's going to be the same, almost waking and sleeping in some ways. When we get out to 5D, as the galactics have shared with us, you really won't even have to sleep anymore. You might choose to for maybe an hour a day here and there. You really won't have to. And you really won't have to eat anymore either. Even in the astral, you don't really have to eat. The life force is all around us all the time. And there are beings that don't have to eat even here in the 3D. And now that sounds crazy to the science, but again, the science is given to us by the controllers. And there have been numerous cases. Our guide, Ananda Mayima, she went long periods without eating. She didn't really have to eat. When you're connected again to the love and the bliss, and your energy is expanding out, and you're open to taking in the prana from the environment, from the sun, from the earth, you really won't have to. Again, it's all about the fear. Right now, they're creating so much fear wrapped around food, but really, we're progressing upward to the point where, if we're able to fully practice things like pranayama, qigong, deep meditation, all these different yogic techniques, kriya yoga and stuff, we will go places that we couldn't imagine. Now, could the average person go from eating Big Macs to living off prana? No, no, absolutely not. I mean, it's night and day, and it all depends on how much work you've done, not just in this life, but in past lives too.
Right. Our past lives stay with us. Those energies stay with us. And, I've been asked before, well, how do I know this is a past life thing? And that's very much when your ears are perked and your attention has been gotten. That's a past life memory. That's a past life memory trying to grab hold of you, saying, remember, we've done this before. And then you got to go down these rabbit holes and learn it and understand it. And sometimes people can't even stay with one subject for very long because they got to keep bouncing from place to place to place. Well, that's because they've lived life of this and life of that and life of this and life of that. So all of these past lives are kind of coming together into like a soul parade, and they're weaving themselves together. It's so beautiful.
It is. It is. Actually, there's nothing really to fear as far as death goes. It's just a transition. And, the guides had showed me a picture of some people that were about to be executed, and it felt like it was in a situation like Nazi Germany. And it was a group of three young men. And what did they do right before they were going to get, shot? They started to sing, and it was joyous. And they were singing joyously when they were shot. But the reason why they did that was they were keeping their vibes high, because when they would step out on the other side, they would be in control. Whereas if it's all about fear, like when people are tortured and stuff, it's horrible, because it just damages the soul. And they know what they're doing. These beings know what they're doing, because they want to keep us in their quote unquote lower astral realm, the hellish realms. And that's what they want to keep you in. And again, everything that we see on this planet is geared towards keeping people in these realms. Everything that's going on with the plague upon the land, again, it's all about keeping you in these lower realms. Why do we have all these zombie apocalypse movies? Again, it's like our worst nightmares come true, keeping you in these hellish realms. If we can touch on the love that's out there, touch on the love that really does come from the Creator to all of us, it is transformative. And again, that's why the mantras are so important, because these beings that we're doing the mantras to, they're on fifth, sixth, and seventh density. They're on much, much higher densities. They're not just in the astral realm. And even beings in the upper astral realm could help us. But when we're talking about these beings on fifth, sixth, and seventh density, they're very real. They're like bigger brothers and sisters that just want to help us in our progress, because they've been through what we've been through. They've been here before, many, many, many countless lifetimes ago, and they understand how difficult it is. And they understand the situation upon the land, with this system. And this system is more than just on Earth. This is like a toxic plague that has plagued this entire universe. And again, it's all about the AI, really. And what we have gotten was that the Draco did create this kind of AI program to help them, but then this program has expanded to encapsulate and control them and the ones that are underneath them. And it is a synthetic. It's not a natural program. And so, they're now under the control of that which they created. Very much in some ways, kind of like what we see in Terminator and The Matrix and some of those movies about these AI programs.
Right. So, we want to be as close to nature as we can. Mother Earth, Father Sky. We want to be able to interweave ourselves as much as possible in those energies, because that's what makes us so strong.
And this is the stuff that I really like to talk about. So when we see like when we look at these different mythologies, they are reflective on different realities, different worlds. You see Asgard there, Midgard, Nilfheim, and all these different worlds that are out there. These are different realities. They're real. They are out there. There's different worlds, different realities, and they're reflective of different dimensions. So when we're talking about beings like Thor, Odin, Freya, we're talking about fourth density beings. So they do reside still on the astral plane, basically. They're still in fourth density. When we're talking about, say, Lakshmi, Thoth, Isis, then we're talking more beings that are residing between fifth and seventh. And many times they can go up and stay in seventh, but they choose to go down a little bit lower in order to have more fun experiences.
Yeah, it's true.
And so, why do we have all these different mythologies? Well, they come as we interact with these beings on our ascending and descending path throughout the yugas. So, when we look to these mythologies, they're a little bit newer, closer to this timeline than when we look to some of the Vedic ones in some ways. But again, this is all reflective. It's all just different exploration for consciousness. There are countless worlds out there. And when we look to the tree of life, again, through the Kabbalah, this is again reflective of this. When we look at the different Sephiroth, we're looking at different vibratory frequencies, different worlds.
Right. And we look through these things with our heart full of love. And that's how you can understand one entity from the next. When your heart is like bursting, then you know you're dealing with a good entity. And when we look through these things and find new understandings and are able to kind of personify a teaching, the heart is full of love. And they want us to move forward and move into these things with an open heart, with a lot of love. And that's something that there's so much they can teach when you have that kind of receptiveness.
Absolutely. So, we are existing in this one universe among unlimited material universes. And they knew this thousands of years ago. Because this knowledge is knowledge that comes to us from the devas, from the shining ones, and from the higher densities, and we still have some remembrance of this knowledge that came to us in the golden ages and the silver ages. We still have some remembering of that. Is it the dominant belief system in the Kali Yuga? No, of course not. That gets totally suppressed. And when you look to, what do the Anunnaki, Gigi, Draco want to give as a belief system? Well, throw your power to them, worship them, worship them, and worship in fear of punishment.
Yeah.
Because again, if you don't follow them, then, they will cut off the rain. They will bring drought. They will bring famine. They will bring plague. They're not the creator. They pose as the creator of the universe, but they are not that, not even close to that. They couldn't be any farther away from that.
Yes, when you find yourself looking at something and you've been put in a state of fear about what's going to happen if you do this or if you don't do that, that's something that you want to stand back and question, because our hearts should be full of love and understanding when we're exploring these realms.
So if you can cultivate love in your heart, avoid certain things that are out there on this planet right now that are intended to lower your frequency, where we are now with the turning of the ages, you would find yourself able to access 5D, which is going to be, a heavenly state. And even if you're not quite able to access 5D, the upper 4D is a wonderful place to be in comparison to the lower 4D. As we look down at Patala at the bottom there, over here, you see it's the hellish planets, the hellish realms. And again, this is all relative to where we are in the yugas. And so we have been basically living a hell on earth, which is not the case with earth when it's in the other ages, only during the Kali Yuga when they are exerting their control. So again, when we look to the leadership of this planet, where do they want to steer this? They want to steer it straight to hell. And that's exactly what they've been doing.
Right. And we find it to be our job to steer differently.
Absolutely. So if you can, cultivate that peace and that love in spite of anything that you're facing, you will help to free your soul. That's the bottom line. And again, this is a matter of awakening. And so some of our family members would like if we would just simply talk about wonderful, light and fluffy things, but we need to wake up as many as possible in order to shift the paradigm.
And sometimes that means, we do need to look at the headlines, because
Absolutely.
These are things that we're trying to help people understand and show people, look, it doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to respond like this. We can respond like that.
And just think about it. If you didn't pay attention to everything going on, you might make some decisions which could lead to very, very bad, tough consequences. Yeah. So again, we need to enlighten as many as we can, and also wake up that fire and power within, because again, when we talk about the higher self, where is the higher self? The higher self is already up there.
Mm-hmm.
The higher self is on that other side of this whole reality. So your higher self is residing for most of us that are on this planet already up in that 5D or better area, and it's just a matter of a reunion, pulling up this part of ourselves up to there. Now these controllers, where's their higher self? It's in the lower astral. It's in the hellish realms. This is their home. This is where they've chosen to reside. And again, it's about frequency. This is their choice. Some of them will wake up and say, I can't do this anymore. And so, that's going to be a blessing. And then they're going to be able to come to a realization and start to move themselves, in a positive direction towards source, towards love and compassion and service to others and helping others. Some will, reach this point, and others won't. Others will repeat to do this cycle countless times.
Right, but we're here to shed as much light and information on these belief systems as possible so people can be free to think as they wish, not what they think they have to.
Yes, a belief system based on fear is not one that's based on love.
Yeah, so we really hope that this has brought you guys some understanding of things and maybe a different understanding and helped you on another positive path so you can explore and enjoy this incarnation to its fullest.
So I'm going to leave you with a phrase in Sanskrit that is beautiful, and it could be a prayer that we could all use. And it's simply Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Again, that's Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. And we do have that in our mantra list. And it means, may all beings everywhere be happy and free.
Mm-hmm.
And free. And that's the key point that the controllers don't want. So thus we know exactly where their hearts are.
Absolutely.
As always, guys, thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Make sure also check out Medicinal Foods. Great people, again, great products, could help with the detoxing as well as nutritional support. Use coupon code EEA. It's at the top of every video and receive a discount. It does support the channel. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.